Hey guys, what's up? It's Deprimido. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here in FL Studio and I'm going to be breaking down Icy Narco beats. A lot of these beats are either made by Ronny J or they're just very inspired by Ronny J beats and that kind of whole Florida sound. Ronny J is one of my personal favorite producers. He's probably top 3 for me. But yeah, let's just get into it. So starting off, our tempo is going to be anywhere from about 155 to 170 BPM. You can kind of move it around, but that's generally where it's going to be for these types of songs. So for the melody of these beats, they're going to be incredibly simple. A lot of times we're just going to start off with a pad. You don't want it to be like super soft, but you don't want it to be harsh either. This is a pretty good choice. I just got this out of Poison, so I'm going to lay out just a quick chord progression with this. So this is the little chord progression that I came up with. It's just 2 chords and then we've got a few extra notes here. This is what it sounds like. So as you can hear, the chords are definitely not very happy. They're very dark, but they aren't super depressing or sad. They're just kind of like evil sounding. So now we're going to add to that vibe with the effects. The first thing that I did was I added Fruity Love Filter, and then I played with the cutoff and resonance a bit. Then I added an EQ, I cut out some of the lows, and I added Micro Finisher. We just did the Infinity preset, pulled it down a little bit. This is actually just the default preset. And then I threw on OTT, I turned down the depth a little bit, and I think that's all I did. Now, comparatively, it sounds way better. So this is the before. Alright, so you can hear halfway between I switched it and after with the effects on, it sounds much more subdued, but it doesn't lose any intensity and it kind of fits the vibe a little bit better. Then you can also see that I rendered it out and I threw it in Fruity Slicer, and then I just turned up the attack a little bit. I just wanted to give it kind of a gated feeling compared to just a flat pad feeling because I thought that was kind of boring, and that's an effect that's done in tons of these beats. Next, we're going to go for some sort of lead. So for my lead sound, I decided to go with a bell. I just got it out of Flex, which is a FL Studio stock plugin that I'm pretty sure comes with all of the additions of FL Studio, which is pretty cool. I just laid out this pattern. I made sure to keep it pretty dark and very repetitive. These beats are just very dark and repetitive. That's pretty much the whole nature of them. So to get that vibe, especially the dark vibe, you're going to go with a lot of these little half-step variations. So you can see right here, there's just a half step, right here, there's a half step, and notes that are just right next to each other are always going to give it that really dark feeling. And then you can make it have that repetitive feeling by just duplicating the exact same thing over, maybe changing one thing or two maybe. This is what it sounds like. For effects on that, I just did an EQ. There was a really like harsh sound every time that it would hit that was just very punchy that I didn't really like, that was in this frequency, so I cut that out, and then I just cut out the lows. Then I also added a reverb, pretty standard. I just turned up the wet and that's about it. If you want to add more, you can. For me, I'm just going to add a couple little textures and stuff, nothing too crazy. So for this first little texture, I just used Creepy Piano. You can see it's the exact same pattern. I just copied it up an octave right there. And again, we've got this one semitone difference between the notes that's going to add a very dark sound. Now the effects are kind of the most important part of this sound because otherwise it's very bland. But you can see what we did is I first added Pretty Fast Distortion. I just used the overdrive preset, I think, and then I turned down the mix. And then we've got an EQ. That just is a bandpass. But the most important part of these effects is the order that they're in. So I'm going to hear them in the order that I want them to be in, and then the other order, and I'm going to let you hear the difference. So that's the proper order. And then if we put them in the opposite order, it sounds like this. Right, so it's a very big difference, so just make sure that you're paying attention to the order that you put your effects in because it definitely does matter. And for the final part of the melody, I used Expand. I went with the ambience and effects bank and I used this pressure leak sound. The ambient section of Expand is super overlooked. I definitely recommend you check it out. There's a ton of sounds in there, and I mean, some of them suck obviously, but a lot of them are pretty cool. You can just have them as a little texture in the background of your melodies and it sounds great. No effects on this one at all. Now we're going to get into the drums, so let's start with the hi-hat. So for the hi-hats, you're generally going to want to use kind of a lower pitched, darker sample. This is the one that I went with. And you're going to want to start with pretty much just a two-step hi-hat pattern, and then you're going to add some low-pitched rolls. You want to make sure that they're, pretty low down in the hi-hat register. So this is the pattern that I made. It's pretty simple. Then we're going to add a clap. Then you can do a rim or a bounce snare. This is the pattern that I did. And again, you could also use a snare for that. So for the 808, we're going to do kind of an unorthodox sounding 808. It's not even going to be a super Ronny J type 808, although it is going to be really hard and distorted. This is the original sample that I chose, but we're going to change it up and make it a run. So the first thing I'm going to do is just something that you're never really going to do on an 808, and I just pitched it down the whole octave. Doesn't really sound good at all. But the next thing we're going to do is come in and turn on clip and then turn up the boost a lot, and now it's going to sound like this. Very hard. So it's definitely a weird sounding 808, but it works and I think it sounds pretty cool. It's a very simple pattern. I just did it all on C. This is in the key of F, so C is the 5th. This is what the pattern sounds like. Now I'm going to add a kick. You don't need to do this since the 808 is so hard and punchy, but I'm going to do it for this one. Now because the 808 is so hard and punchy, we're not going to just layer it on the kick because that's just not going to sound good. The kick isn't going to shine through it all. You're not even going to be able to hear it, and it's just going to make it muddy. So we're going to do a counter kick pattern. Here is the kick pattern that I came up with. Then you can add an open hat or, some perks or whatever you want to do, but this is plenty of sounds as it is for me, so I'm just going to mix it down. So for this beat, the mixing process is going to be a little bit different than usual. We want to make sure that the melody is just super atmospheric and ambient, so we don't want to have anything that sticks out too much. We want everything to blend together really, really well. So on this pad, I actually decided to add a little bit of fruity fast distortion as well, and I just turned down the mix again. Then all of the effects are the same as I showed you earlier. I also did add just an EQ on this pad, ambient type of thing that we got from Expand, and just brought it up to about 100 Hertz. Other than that, all the effects are the same, so it's really just down to the layering, but I'm let you hear it so that you can really understand what I mean when I say that you don't want anything to stick out. You really just all want it to kind of combine into a wall of sound. You can tell that everything is definitely audible, but it all just really meshes together and it kind of sounds like it's all just the same part of one melody. Then we can add in the drums, and the drums you just got to make sure that they're super hard and that they're knocking and they're loud. This is what it sounds like. And that's pretty much it for the beat. The last thing to do is arrange it. The arrangement for these beats are pretty standard. The only thing I should note is make sure that you cut out the entire, all of the sounds at the end of bars. Do that at least once or twice. That's going to be in most of these beats, and it sounds pretty cool. It works really well, so just make sure that you do that because that's super common in these beats. That's pretty much it. Other than that, it's just a really standard arrangement. So yeah, I'm going to play the beat at the end of the video, but thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe. Also go down to the description and pick up my brand new free loop kit in celebration of 200 subscribers. Also make sure to go follow me on Instagram. I'm really close to 2,000 followers, and when we get there, I'm dropping a free MIDI kit, so make sure to go follow so that you can get that. But otherwise, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.